Israel is on the brink of a major war with Hezbollah, and yesterday carried out one of the craziest covert operations I've ever heard of. We're talking about more than 4,000 encrypted pagers ordered specifically by Hezbollah to bypass Israeli monitoring that had small explosive charges planted inside and detonated simultaneously across Lebanon. So, is that preparation for a larger Israeli military operation, a hopeful strike to keep Hezbollah from carrying out future attacks, or the same old tit for tat that has brought us, at this point, to the edge of war? Today we're going to dive into the northern front where Israel and Hezbollah are facing off and what risks escalating into the deadliest conflict that the Middle East has seen in decades. Now, Hezbollah is a Lebanese Shia political party, a paramilitary organization, and designated a terrorist organization by the United States, Israel, and 24 other countries. They're also the largest and most lethal group of the Iranian axis of resistance. They occupy a significant portion of southern Lebanon, and although not technically in charge, the threat they pose to the legitimate Lebanese government gives Hezbollah significant sway in domestic politics and the overall running of the country. To give you an idea of the organization, their leader, Hassan Nasrallah, in a speech on October 7th, said, quote, Hezbollah congratulates the resisting Palestinian people and the heroic fighters of the Palestinian factions, especially our dear brothers in the Al-Qassam brigades and the Islamic resistance movement, Hamas, for the wide-ranging and divinely supported heroic operation promising complete victory. Then on October 8th, a day later, they began firing rockets, missiles, and artillery into northern Israel, prompting the evacuation of tens of thousands of civilians who have still not yet been able to return home. Nasrallah has also repeatedly vowed to destroy Israel. Famously, in a 2005 speech, he stated, quote, it is an aggressive, illegal, and illegitimate entity which has no future in our land. Its destination is manifested in our motto, death to Israel. Now, since October 8th, 26 Israeli civilians and 20 Israeli soldiers have so far been killed in Hezbollah-led attacks from southern Lebanon. In fact, Hezbollah themselves have named over 453 members of their organization who have also been killed by Israel during the ongoing skirmishes, mostly in Lebanon, some in Syria as well. That number is probably going to be quite a bit higher after this wild covert strike that we learned about yesterday. Now, in the past 11 months, Hezbollah has fired hundreds of rockets and missiles at military locations in nearby towns in northern Israel, and yet, instead of striking Hezbollah decisively, Israel has allowed the attacks to continue, operating under the belief that so long as the homes are empty and no lives are lost, a wider war might be avoided. But it doesn't look like that's actually going to work out. I mean, it's not just the casualties and damage adding stress to the situation right now. An estimated 96,000 Israelis and 110,000 Lebanese have been displaced from the border area. They're coming up on a full year internally displaced, not able to return to their homes, their jobs, or their life prior to the October 7th attacks. How long can either country sustain essentially a dead zone on their border? Additionally, the longer this war drags on, the more damage it does to the Israeli economy. Israel's GDP per capita rose by 6.8% in 2021 and 4.8% in 2022, which is quite a bit more than in most Western countries. But then it contracted by 4.1% in the weeks after the October 7th attacks, and the downturn continued into 2024, falling by an additional 1.1% and 1.4% in the first two quarters. Additionally, it's estimated that up to 60,000 Israeli companies may have to close in 2024 due to staffing shortages, supply chain disruptions, and waning business confidence, while many companies are currently postponing new projects. And if all of that wasn't enough, Hezbollah is attempting to assassinate senior Israeli officials. Just this week, on Tuesday, the Shin Bet, Israel's domestic security service, said that they had prevented an attack targeting a former senior official in Israeli security establishment that was planning to be carried out in the coming days. The Shin Bet said that agents uncovered a Claymore explosive device equipped with a remote activation mechanism with a camera and cellular technology, which it said could allow it to be activated by Hezbollah from Lebanon. And in fact, just earlier today, Israel confirmed that the target was former Defense Minister and IDF Chief of Staff Moshe Elan. Now, overall, Israel doesn't have a lot of good options. Hezbollah has stated that it'll continue its attacks until the war in Gaza ends, yet any sort of ceasefire between Hamas and Israel appears increasingly unlikely. As a result, the status quo of daily rocket fire into northern Israel continues to drag on. Now, on its own, Hezbollah does pose a pretty significant threat to Israel and broader regional security. Hezbollah is estimated to have an arsenal of around 150,000 rockets and missiles and is believed to have the ability to fire up to 5,000 projectiles a day in the early stages of a war. Israel's missile defense systems, as sophisticated as they are, would pretty quickly be overwhelmed. There just aren't enough interceptors to shoot down that many munitions. That is, of course, unless Israel launches a timely counterattack, like we saw last month as Hezbollah began a pretty large barrage. But that's unsustainable for Israel to essentially sit on pins and needles waiting for that attack to come. Unfortunately for Israel, they can't afford to put all their eggs in one basket and dedicate too many resources to go after Hezbollah. They've just got too many open fronts right now, putting their country and their citizens at risk. For instance, this past Sunday, the Yemen-based Houthis launched a missile that landed in central Israel, setting off air raid sirens at Ben Gurion International Airport. An Israeli military official said that that specific missile was hit by an interceptor and fragmented in the air. Missile pieces landed in fields near a railway station, and there were no direct casualties, but apparently 9 people were injured as they were seeking cover. Now, the Houthis have regularly tried to strike Israel, but most have been intercepted over the Red Sea. This missile strike, however, is the second time an attack has penetrated Israeli airspace. That Houthi threat isn't going away anytime soon. There's also been an increase in violence and Israeli military operations in the West Bank. In fact, during a government meeting earlier this week, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and top security officials presented a situation update on the West Bank, which they described as at a critical breaking point. Gallant and security officials warned that if no immediate changes were made, a serious security escalation could result in hundreds of Israeli casualties. And, of course, there's the ever-present concern that Iran will at some point actually respond to the July 31st assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. I mean, they pledged to avenge his death, really hyped it up, but we still haven't really seen anything, at least not yet. And it's one more area that Israel has to just be constantly worried about. Now, turning to yesterday's covert operation that we'll call Operation Pager Detonation, because there's no official name at this point. So yesterday, news started coming out of Lebanon that pagers were exploding. Yes, you heard that correctly. So Hezbollah has shifted away from cell phones because they were worried about these devices being hacked and communications intercepted by Israel. I guess the move then was to these pagers. Anyways, what we know so far, which is limited because this was a covert operation that isn't being claimed by Israel at this point, is that Hezbollah had a new batch of pagers that they distributed across their organization. Then yesterday afternoon in Lebanon, as many as 4,000 of these devices detonated simultaneously, causing quite a few casualties. Now, the footage here is pretty graphic. I'm not going to show any of it in this video, but it's pretty easy to find. We're seeing a lot of people missing hands or with mangled hands, lots of bloodied faces, and some with chunks entirely missing from their side, kind of right where the pager would have been on their belt or their pocket. Now, this looks like more than just forcing the device to overheat, causing a battery to blow up. Some of the blasts shown on camera and the results in various pictures and videos really make it look like there was some sort of small explosive charge placed inside of these devices that was then triggered remotely. Turning to some official statements here, Hezbollah yesterday put out a note saying, quote, at approximately 3:30 p.m. on Tuesday, September 19th, a number of message receiving devices known as pagers exploded, which were owned by a number of workers in various Hezbollah units and installations. These explosions, the causes of which are still unknown, led to the martyrdom of a girl and 2 brothers, and the injury of a large number of people with various injuries. After examining all of the facts, current data, and available information about the sinful attack that took place this afternoon, we hold the Israeli enemy fully responsible for this criminal aggression, which also targeted civilians and led to the deaths of a number of martyrs and the injury of a large number with various wounds. Later yesterday, a Lebanese security source told Al Jazeera that the Hezbollah pagers that exploded earlier were imported to Lebanon just 5 months prior. In fact, that same report said that the communication devices were rigged with up to 20 grams of explosive material. Then in a separate report by the UAE-based Sky News Arabia, they claimed that the Mossad agents placed PETN, a powerful explosive material, on the batteries of the pagers and detonated them by raising the temperature. As of now, what we know in terms of casualty reports are 4,000 Hezbollah members injured, including as many as 18 high-ranking commanders. 400 of those 4,000 are in critical condition. Around 500 supposedly lost their eyesight. And so far, Hezbollah has confirmed the death of 12 of their members due to these exploding pagers. I should also mention that it's been reported that Iran's ambassador to Lebanon was also wounded in this attack as his pager exploded, which would mean, You guessed it, to nobody's surprise at all, Iranian leadership is in direct communication with Hezbollah, a recognized terrorist organization. But to be fair, it would have been more surprising if nobody from Iran was caught up in this at all. Now, this kind of attack is the kind of thing that could absolutely cripple Hezbollah in the short term. Even if the death toll ends up being minor and the injury is not life-threatening, the quick and total disruption of a communication network like that could be very, very hard to fight through. Additionally, Hezbollah immediately has thousands of casualties, and their hospitals are completely filled. Think about how that would impact the start of a war with Israel. So yesterday, there were a lot of folks on edge, myself included, waiting for Israel to launch some sort of phase 2 and really take the fight to Hezbollah. And we did kind of see that, but nothing really out of the ordinary. I mean, for months now, there have been nearly nonstop Israeli attacks against launch sites, weapon storage facilities, command centers, and logistics hubs in southern Lebanon. Every day, there's multiple reports coming out showing the footage of additional Israeli strikes. And some of these have been pretty massive explosions, and others have taken out key Hezbollah leaders, but nothing so far has stopped the constant Hezbollah attacks in the north, at least not quite yet. However, we do see signals continuing to mount that a larger war is coming. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant told his American counterpart, U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, just about last week, that the window for a diplomatic solution with Hezbollah is closing. Gallant's job also might be on the line here, as the decision whether or not to go into Lebanon may be a determining factor. Israeli National Security Minister Ben-Gvir said on Monday, quote, "For many months I've been calling on Prime Minister Netanyahu to fire Gallant, and the time has come to do so immediately. A decision has to be made in the north, and Gallant is not the right man to lead it," end quote. So one of the leading voices, Gallant, arguing against a war in the north, is facing pressure to be replaced entirely. This statement came the same day as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office announced that the security cabinet had updated its list of war objectives to include the safe return of residents who have been displaced from their homes near Israel's northern border with Lebanon due to months of fighting with Hezbollah. Now, previously, the war aims had been focused on Hamas and actions around the Gaza Strip. This announcement directly pulls in the northern front and this ongoing war with Hezbollah. Now, we are starting to see some level of preparation on the ground. In recent months, Israel has reallocated forces from Gaza to the north. And according to a recent report in Ynet, Israeli soldiers in the north are preparing to go on the offensive. They quoted Lieutenant Colonel Razili saying, quote, "Besides our defensive mission, we're winding the forces up like a coiled spring daily, waiting for the top brass to give us the green light to release it and change the equation along the border so we can allow residents to return home," end quote. In fact, yesterday, the IDF announced that their 98th Division is being deployed to the northern border amidst heightened tensions with Hezbollah after months of operation in the Gaza Strip. The paratroopers and commando division are now joining the 36th Division under the Israeli Northern Command. We also have a report from Israeli Channel 13 News, who on Sunday said that Major General Gordon, the head of Israeli Defense Forces Northern Command, is pressuring decision makers to launch a large-scale incursion into Lebanon, while Gallant and IDF Chief of Staff Halevi have expressed doubts over carrying out that type of operation. Gordon, according to this report, has recommended in recent closed-door meetings that the IDF be given the green light to seize and occupy a buffer zone in southern Lebanon. The report said that Gordon believes pushing Hezbollah fighters away from the border would be achievable quickly, with the most elite Hezbollah forces along the border having already been killed in Israeli strikes or having already fled north, and with an estimated 80% of civilians in southern Lebanon also having left the area. Now, according to reports, Gallant believes that now is not the right time to launch an action like this and wants to give a chance to efforts to achieve a diplomatic solution in the north and a ceasefire hostage deal in Gaza. Now, I can understand Gallant's stance here, but again, we're coming up on a year, and I wonder how much longer he'll be able to hold out for a possible ceasefire deal that hasn't happened and still doesn't appear to be anywhere near completion. Now, Israel really has three options here. One option is for Israel to launch some sort of large-scale military operation in the north against Hezbollah, a move that would almost certainly degrade the terrorist group's capabilities, but at a significant cost in terms of military and civilian casualties, as well as damage on really both sides of the border. The second option is to ramp up the covert operations and strike campaigns designed to decapitate Hezbollah leadership and make the organization inoperable. Now, this is something that's been ongoing right now, and while it does limit the risk of escalation, it also hasn't really proven very effective against adaptable groups like Hezbollah. It's entirely likely that staying the course is really just kicking this Hezbollah problem down the road. Now, the third option is to hold out for a ceasefire with Hamas, with the hope that it will also lead to a halt in Hezbollah's attacks. There's a lot of people rooting for this under the belief that once the war in Gaza ends, Hezbollah will also stop launching rockets and missiles, and maybe even pull some of their forces away from the border. But of course, we have to wonder, what if that doesn't happen? What if Hezbollah continues its attacks despite a ceasefire in Gaza or doesn't relocate its forces? Now that Netanyahu has added the return of citizens in the north as a dedicated war aim, that means the status quo is unacceptable and has to change. If Hezbollah doesn't change it themselves, it'll end up being on the Israeli military to force their hand. It's a lot to consider, but one thing is certain. The current situation is unsustainable for Israel. A chunk of their country is uninhabitable, nearly 100,000 civilians displaced for a year, and every day this goes on, their economy risks further contraction. What I just described is a victory for Hezbollah, a victory for Iran, a victory for the axis of resistance, and I don't think that's an outcome that Israel is going to accept. But that's all I've got for now. Of course, if you're interested in this or other national security subjects, be sure to check out Between the Lines, which is linked in the description below. It's our reader-funded publication, diving into a wide range of subjects from all around the world. But thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.